individual norms, rules, principles of international law should apply to the use of cyberspace needs further and most careful consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker is Iran. Iran has the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. In the name of God, the most compassionate, the most merciful. Mr. President, first, my delegation would like to appreciate the timely proposal forwarded by the delegation of China to include the item International Law and Cyberspace on the agenda of the ALCO. The Islamic Republic of Iran attaches high importance to the issue and thus deems it commendable that ALCO keeps up with the latest challenges which appear to be real common concerns to all ALCO member states. According to the official statistics issued by the International Telecommunications Union in 2012, from more than 2.5 billion Internet users in the world, member states of ALCO hold more than 1,240,000,000 Internet users. This figure has undergone a 7.9% growth in the year 2014 when compared with the rate of population growth, which is 1.14% in the same year. This indicates that our nations are becoming digitalized with a faster rate than the population growth. The 40.40% penetration of Internet in society in 2014 compared with the 37.9% in 2013 is also witness thereof. These figures show that coming to terms with the virtual world is inevitable, so we have to face the challenge. In tandem with all the benefits it provides, the Internet is the source of unprecedented challenges to states on national and international levels. The main problem is that cyberspace is a spatial entity without defined borders, where transnationalism takes a whole new definition. With locations thousands of kilometers farther being just a single click away, this almost unregulated space is always potential of turning into a full-fledged battlefield with real warriors attacking states, many of them impossible to locate even physically. Mr. President, the diverse legal dimensions of cyber activities span different areas of national and international law, including telecommunications law, aviation law, law of space, law of the sea, and international humanitarian law. Putting aside some aspects of cyberspace regulated through national legislation, mainly that of cybercrimes, the complexity of the issue calls into question the applicability of existing international legal norms. This is specifically complicated by the fact that the main classical framework of international law has been established in an era void of digital connections, and this leads to certain ambiguities. A few examples thereof being the characterization of cyber attacks as force under Article 2.4 of the UN Charter, the applicability of principles of international humanitarian law such as distinction and proportionality, and whether customary international law of state responsibility apply to complex cases of infiltrations using computer services of a third party or in case of large-scale attacks by non-state use actors. Whether called cyber attacks, cyber warfare, or cyber terrorism, harmful cyber activities are capable of shutting down nuclear centrifuges, air defense systems, electrical grids, and other vital infrastructure in violation of state sovereignty and territorial integrity. Mr. President, in the past years, many states, including ALCO member states, have fallen victim to cyber attacks directed in violation of their sovereignty and territorial integrity. While respect to sovereign equality of states and inviolability of their territorial integrity is a sine qua non to respect for international law, the permeating nature of virtual cyber attacks stands against the principles of international law in the real world. Therefore, it seems that the legal aspects of acts carried out in cyberspace deserve to be the subject of consultations at the ALCO, and the unique nature of the topic demands the preparedness of states to consider the lex ferenda dimensions of the phenomenon. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Is there any request for the floor? Nigeria has the floor. You have the floor, sir.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, my delegation commends the People's Republic of China for this proposal to introduce this item to the ALCO agenda. We also commend ALCO for admitting it. The issue of the lawful and responsible use of cyberspace is one which is fast gaining the attention of the global community, and ALCO should therefore be an active part of this movement to ensure that cyberspace does not become a new frontier for global conflict or destabilization, as the distinguished representative of China pointed out. Mr. President, Nigeria looks forward to a more detailed elaboration of this topic at future sessions of ALCO. In light of our current efforts to articulate and implement a domestic regime through the Cybercrime Bill of 2013, which is currently under consideration by our National Assembly. While the focus of the bill is the need to ensure that cyberspace is not used as an uncontrollable frontier for the commission of crimes, we are also continuing with studies on legislating on various civil aspects touching on the use of cyberspace, such as in areas like libel, rights to privacy, and corporate responsibility. This is especially against the backdrop of the exponential growth of the telecommunications sector in our country and our continent over the past few years. We have also been concerned about the use of the internet to promote activities which are terrorist-related. It is in this context that Nigeria continues to enthusiastically participate in international initiatives to address this topic, including the present initiative by ALCO. Mr. President, my delegation therefore looks forward to the 54th session of ALCO, where we hope a more detailed elaboration of this topic will be undertaken, and we hope to be an active part of this initiative by ALCO to address this very critical topic. I thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Any more requests for the floor? If none, I see none. I consider this agenda item, cyberspace and international law, to be closed. Ladies and gentlemen, we have 15 minutes to go before the break, and for this morning in your program, there are 3 more items: report on the work of the ALCO's regional arbitration centers, report by the chairman of the EPG, and report by chairman of working group on customary international law. Well, I don't know whether within 15 minutes we can deal with the first agenda item, which is the report of the work of the ALCO's Regional Arbitration Center. Is it possible? This one. Sorry, I'm consulting with the Secretary General. Okay, I've been advised by the Secretary General to take up the last one, which is the report by the chairman of the working group on customary international law, because we got to adjourn the meeting at 11:30 in order to have some break. Otherwise, I'll be probably accused of violating your human rights, not to giving you the break for having a cup of coffee or tea. Okay. Yes. Sorry. Okay, again, I was advised by the Secretariat that since the chairman of the EPG is leaving today in the afternoon, we should give him the floor. Professor Preda, you have the floor. Please come up and present your report. You have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President, for accommodating the report of the EPG at this stage. Mr. President, Mr. Secretary General, Excellencies, distinguished delegates, I am pleased to present the report of the Eminent Persons Group of ALCO, the third meeting of the EPG, which was held on 14 September 2014. The fourth meeting of the ALCO Eminent Persons Group was convened at Hotel Espinas on 14th September 2014 at 4:30 p.m. The meeting was chaired by Dr. Rohan Pereira of Sri Lanka and attended by HE Professor Dr. Ramat Mohammed, Secretary General of ALCO, Dr. Neeru Chada, Joint Secretary and Legal Advisor of the Ministry of External Affairs of the Government of India, and the President of ALCO, Professor Shinya Murase, Member of the International Law Commission of Japan, Professor Damshid Momtaz, former member and Chairman of the International Law Commission from the Islamic Republic of Iran, Mr. Mohsen Barwan, Deputy Director General, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of the Islamic Republic of Iran. Mr. Fang Qinghu, this is Harimoto, Deputy Secretary General of the ALCO, Mr. H.P. Rajan, Legal Advisor of ALCO, Mrs. Anuradha Bakshi, Principal Legal Officer, and Mr. Pandiraj, Senior Legal Officer of ALCO, assisted the EPG. The chairman stated the paper entitled Points for Discussion, which had been circulated, highlighted the important issues that had to be discussed with a view to advancing the work of the organization. The issues were divided into organizational and substantive matters to facilitate focused and structured discussions, although some of the issues were of a cross-cutting nature. The chairman drew attention of the EPG to the need to chart out a mechanism to implement the recommendations of the EPG. The meeting decided that the EPG should make a clear, strong, and precise recommendations to the member states on some of the important issues that were deliberated during the meeting. Organizational matters, financial issues. The EPG took note of the Secretary General's statement that member states were fulfilling their financial obligations on time, and some of the member states who had been in arrears had started clearing their dues. With prudent financial management and austerity measures adopted by the organization, the reserve fund had increased to the extent of maintaining the organization for as much as 8 months. However, it was brought out that in order to maintain the financial sustainability of ALCO, a proposal to increase the annual contributions from member states would have to be revisited next year. In this regard, he pointed out that one way of raising the finances of ALCO would be through voluntary contributions, not only in terms of money, but also by sponsoring the holding of seminars or workshops by member states in areas of particular interest or concern. On this, he cited the example of the ILC workshop hosted in Malaysia last year. He also stated that member states that could contribute more should do so on a voluntary basis. The EPG took note with appreciation of the efforts of the Secretary General and the Secretariat in improving the financial stability of the organization. It reiterated the need to maintain the financial stability of ALCO, inter alia through measures for enhanced annual contributions with effect from next year, given the escalating costs. The EPG also recognizing that an important start had been made with the hosting of, by the government of Malaysia of the ILC workshop in 2013, commended this practice for consideration by member states. The need to continue to solicit voluntary funding by member states was also emphasized. The Secretary General also made a reference to an informal proposal made about 2 years ago that funding could be arranged from private companies on project-based collaboration with ALCO. On the issue of attracting funding from private sources, it was pointed out that thus far the ALCO did not have any specific proposal before it to further pursue the matter, and that if any such endeavor, that in any such endeavor, caution needed to be exercised so that ALCO's independence is not jeopardized. EPG, while recognizing the need for caution, took the view that any such proposal for funding from the private sector need to be examined on a case-by-case basis. Human resource situation of the ALCO Secretariat. It was noted with great concern that at present, the strength of the professional legal staff of the organization was reduced to just 2 officials, and that there was an urgent need to increase the strength to at least 4 or 5 in view of the onerous and wide-ranging responsibilities entrusted to the Secretariat by the member states. While commending the work performed by the limited legal staff, the Secretary General requested member states of ALCO to explore various ways through which local talent could be attracted and retained. In this regard, he suggested that member states should consider giving professional staff an attractive salary package, including the provision of, for pension and other benefits as given by the host government of India to its state employees. He also encouraged member states to depute or second their mid-level officials working in various ministries to work in ALCO on short-term basis while remaining on the payroll of member states. It was also suggested that the host state, the Government of India, could consider deputing some of its officials to ALCO on such short-term basis, as has been the case with the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, even while these officials were on the payroll of their respective governments. In this regard, it was also pointed out that the image and profile of ALCO had an intimate linkage with the upgrading of the human resource situation of ALCO. EPG endorsed these recommendations for consideration by member states and noted that the practice of deputing officials of member states to work in the organization while remaining on the national payroll was a practice resorted to by the organization in the past, and took the view that this practice merits revival. On attracting young professional talent, the EPG recommended that in addition to an attractive salary package, these officials could also be given an opportunity of attending on a selective basis the deliberations of the International Law Commission and of the 6th Legal Committee of the United Nations, and covering the deliberations of these bodies on select items which are of interest to member states. Such an arrangement would serve to attract young professionals as an incentive, and also benefit the organization by enhancing the quality of the documentation through insights gained by such an exposure. Enlarging the membership of ALCO. The Secretary General noted with regret that despite the best efforts, he had not been able to persuade any new states to join ALCO so far. He, however, noted with satisfaction that Vietnam had shown keen interest in joining the organization and would be attending the 53rd session as an observer state, along with Mali. He had also encouraged countries such as Laos and Cambodia to join ALCO, perhaps first as observers and thereafter as full members of the organization. As far as the Central Asian states were concerned, they had not reported positively so far, and he hoped that the combined efforts of the incumbent president of the Islamic Republic of Iran and the Secretariat of the ALCO would ensure that at least a few of them would be joining the organization in the near future. In this regard, it was mentioned that the host government had invited the ambassadors of Central Asian states to attend the inaugural session, and this could provide an opportunity to have meetings with the Secretary General to consider the possibility of joining the organization. It was also suggested that more Francophone countries from Africa should be encouraged to join ALCO. It was further suggested that ALCO should seek the help of countries such as Cameroon and Senegal in the pursuit of this objective. Secretary General also pointed out that for the past many years, there has not been any Assistant Secretary General from an African region, and this needed attention. The EPG, while taking note of the comments of the Secretary General, underlined the importance of making special efforts to attract Central Asian states as well as Francophone states. It was suggested that the Secretary General could, in cooperation with the incumbent presidency of the Islamic Republic of Iran, could visit those countries in the Central Asian region which showed some interest in joining the organization. I now turn to substantive matters of the report. The Secretary General pointed out the difficulty in dealing with 16 agenda items that are on the agenda of ALCO. Hence, it was agreed in the EPG that there is a dire need to prioritize the agenda items of ALCO. In this regard, it was noted that though some of the topics were ongoing, they were devoid of any new legal developments and hence could be placed in the category of non-deliberated agenda items. It was also agreed that the distinction between deliberated and non-deliberated agenda items should be continued, as it provided a pragmatic solution to the overburdening of the agenda. It was also agreed that new topics of contemporary relevance and practical benefit to member states needed to be given priority in the work program of ALCO. In this regard, it was recalled that ALCO used to play a proactive role in channeling the common views of Asian African states by preparing background notes on issues of contemporary relevance during negotiations in multilateral fora such as UNCLOS 3. Even if a common position could not be arrived at, the preparation of background papers were still considered useful in fine-tuning the position of individual countries. It was pointed out that topics such as current legal issues arising out of bilateral investment treaties, the problems posed to member states by inconsistent arbitral awards in investor-state dispute settlement, question of piracy, and the current issues relating to the law of the sea, such as issues relating to biodiversity beyond areas of national jurisdiction, were topics of contemporary relevance to all Asian and African member states which required attention. The EPG was informed that one way of focusing attention on issues of current importance was by the establishment of working groups on topics concerned, and in this regard, it was pointed out that the working group on customary international law established for this particular session could be considered to be a test case, and the EPG endorsed this practice for consideration for future sessions of ALCO. The EPG was also informed that the government of the People's Republic of China had proposed a new agenda item, international law in cyberspace, which would be placed before the heads of delegations for approval and subsequent adoption as an agenda item of ALCO. As we have just heard, it was subsequently adopted. In this regard, the Secretary General of ALCO informed that the 54th session of ALCO would take place in the People's Republic of China, preferably in the first part of 2015. He also added that it would enable him to transmit the views of member states on ILC issues to the Commission in a timely manner, in line with the past practice of ALCO. EPG welcomed this development. Professor Shinya Murase, member of the EPG, placed before the group a proposal for creating a working group to work on a model status of forces agreement, or SOFA, for military forces engaged in disaster relief activities. He expressed the hope that the ILC draft articles on the topic, protection of persons in the event of disasters, would work on a more useful and practical mechanisms in the future. He took the view that the ALCO could provide an appropriate forum to work on this topic with a view to finalizing a model agreement for Asian African member states, given the fact that these states had been facing many natural disasters in recent times. He informed that his proposal was based on the Status of Forces Agreement for United Nations peacekeeping operations. The importance as well as the complexity of the topic proposed by Professor Shinya Murase was noted by the EPG. Issues such as privileges and immunities of visiting armed forces, questions of jurisdiction of the host state vis-à-vis those of the state of nationality were of much complexity and had to be approached carefully. In this regard, it was suggested that the Secretariat of ALCO should, in the first place, collect the practice of states existing in this area and attempt to decipher the common constituent elements of such practices. It was also pointed out that it would be a good idea to place before the member states the constituent elements of state practice in this regard. The ALCO Secretariat could place the proposal put forward by Professor Murase at the next liaison officers meeting. The liaison officers, in turn, could then communicate the proposal to their capitals and obtain the response from member states in this regard. That concludes the report of the EPG. I thank you, Mr. President.
I thank Dr.